Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Eustis City Hall. This is a regular City Commission meeting of the City Commission. It is 6 o'clock Thursday, April the 15th, 2021. At this time, we're going to have our pledge, which is going to be led by a group of kids. We've got Craig Dolan, our new Parks and Recreation Director's kids, going to lead us in the pledge. And then we're going to have a moment of silence before they start. So if you'd like to join us, please stand. Guys, come on up front. Mr. Nyberg. If you bow your heads for me, please. Amen. Mr. Nyberg, would you help him with the microphone?
I will do that.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Guys, thank you so much. Great job. I'm going to officially go ahead and call our meeting to order. Mary, is our quorum present? Proper notice been given?
Yes, Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Nyberg, any agenda updates, sir?
No, sir.
Thank you so much. Commissioners, before us, we have approval of minutes from our March 29, 2021 special City Commission meeting and our March 31st, 2021 joint City Commission meeting with the county. Looking for a motion to approve our minutes.
So moved.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. We've got a first and a second. Any discussion? Not hearing any. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hawkins.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Lee. Aye. Commissioner LaHoop Smith. Aye. Commissioner Cobb. Aye. Mayor Holland.
Aye. Next, we have presentations. Presentation regarding the American Recovery Act funds and allowable expenditures. Mr. Nyberg.
Good evening, Commission. It's deja vu all over again. American Recovery Act, as you recall, Congress has recently authorized $1.9 trillion to address the effects of COVID on the country. Of this funding, the City of Eustis will be receiving $8.95 million. The schedule and funding guidelines at this point, state and local government recipients, we will have to use the funds, that means expend them under the provisions of the law by December 31st of 2024. The funds are going to be distributed in 2 batches with 50% delivered no later than 60 days on the date which the certification is required. The states will be getting our money and we'll be getting it 30 days after the state. We'll get the next money a year after that, the other half. A town cannot receive more than 75% of its budget as it existed on January 27, 2020. Given that we have a $30 million budget, the 8.95 nowhere meets that 75% threshold. The Treasury Department will also withhold up to half of the state or territory's allocation for as long as 12 months based on employment rates and require an updated certification of its funding needs. Those are state level, not the municipal levels. The guidelines of what the use of the funds are very fluid at this point. We've been checking all of the websites, all of the legislative documents and resources. So at this point, the uses of the funds are as follows. We can respond to COVID-19 emergencies and address its economic effects, including through aid to households, meaning we could give assistance to the households for basically whatever purpose at this point that the Commission desires to give aid. Small businesses, not-for-profits, and industries such as tourism and hospitality. Again, there is no guidelines as to we give those grants to them, how much we give them, or what those funds can be used for by those entities. We can provide premium pay to essential employees or grants to their employers. Premium pay cannot exceed $13 an hour or $25,000 per worker. Premium pay means monies over their base salary at this point. Essential employees has not been defined, and it also, by reading the language, implies we can give money to a business who can give the premium pay to their employees that they deem essential. We can provide government services affected by a revenue reduction resulting from COVID-19. Mike initially got very excited because we had lost about $500,000 in sales tax, state sales tax revenue. He thought we could plant that back in there. Our interpretation of the language is no. What we read that means if we had a reduction in revenues because of COVID and we cut services, we can use this money to reinstate those services. That's our interpretation of that language. The easiest one to interpret, make investments in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. So any projects we have that fall under those categories are certainly eligible for expenditures under this fund. The federal government explicitly says state and local governments cannot use the funds toward pensions or to offset revenue resulting from tax cuts enacted after March 3rd of 2021. So what this does, if a community thought this money was coming, they were going to be the good guys and cut fees and taxes by the amount they were coming in and replace it with this and come off as good guys. They're not going to let us do that. State and local governments could transfer funds to private, not-for-profit groups, public benefit corporations involved in passenger or cargo transportation, and special purpose units of state or local government. Now, the important part of that one is the final part, special purpose units of local government. And talking with Derek, our interpretation of that would mean we could transfer all or a portion of this fund to the CRA, which is a special purpose unit of local government. And the only guidelines that we have to go on at this point is that as long as the CRA is using it for purposes that are approved under the CRA plans, then they can use those funds for that. Also, I believe our interpretation is once we transfer that fund to the CRA, we've met our December 31st, 2024 obligation. So we get the money in 6 months from now, we transfer it to the CRA. We've met our obligation under the federal law. We've transferred it to a special purpose unit of local government, and it can sit there in the CRA. Now, these rules may change as we get closer to the funds getting out, but at this point, this is our interpretation of the funds and what they can be used for. We do know that they will be subject to audit. We don't believe that there's going to be a separate auditing agency of the federal government created to do this. In talking to Mike, what we believe they're going to do is they're going to require a special single audit of these funds under the city's regular annual audits to make sure that we complied with the federal statutes. Potential Eustis use of the funds. At this point, we're throwing a couple of options for your consideration. Provide funds to the new Bates Avenue sewer expansion, which is at this point estimated to be $7 million project. We're recommending about $5 million of that be put into the project of the federal dollars. This will lower our debt service requirement on the city and requiring borrowing only of $2 million as opposed to the full $7 million. It's certainly at this point very clear that this is an eligible project under the statute. We don't see that changing significantly. So we believe that this would be a safe investment of those funds, and certainly the project will be completed by December 31st of 2024. You took my sign down. There we go. We can provide direct funding, as I said earlier, to the CRA to support CRA projects. Such projects for consideration would be the parking garage that we're looking at building for the support of the Atrium project. Community center upgrades, because the community center is within the CRA. Carver Park Gym project would be eligible under the CRA and is within the CRA boundaries. Or other building improvements, we're recommending the amount of that to be the $3.95 million. Now, the commission could consider some of those other business or home assistance programs, but obviously the problem with those is we would have to create an administrative body or structure to take applications, create the criteria, administer those funds. It would be very time consuming. We'd lose a big portion of that funding just for administrative costs. So the goal of obviously the program was to inject some money into the local economies to get some investment in communities, and I think some of these projects would certainly meet that. Now, we don't have to make a commitment right now. Obviously, we can change our mind at a later date. They are not requiring at this point, spend plans like the county did when we had the first CARES money. At this point, they're just saying, here's your $8.95 million, spend it wisely within these guidelines, and we'll be back to check on you later through your audit. Questions or comments?
Any questions?
Let me try and get one commitment. Obviously, we're getting close to beginning the funding process for the state loan money. Our goal right now is, Rick here. We're going to submit for an authorization to borrow up to $7 million at this point, but we may change that as part of the application process. So hopefully, when are we targeting that, Rick?
We're starting engineering. Rick Garrett, Public Works Director. We're starting engineering now, and we're awarding a CMAR, a construction manager at risk, to help the engineering and value engineering it. We're at the next cycle, we're on track to have the engineering documents to be able to go into SRF. I believe that's summer submittal, but we will hit the next coming SRF submittal.
So probably sometime midsummer, we'll have to make a formal determination on if we're going to commit these funds to the sewer project so that we can stay in line with our SRF funding. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. All right. Next presentation is city water rate study. Mike Shepherd.
Keep it lively.
Members of the commission. Mike Shepherd, Finance Director. Did you steal it? It's right there.
Sure. I wouldn't do that to you.
I'm going to have to, first of all, I want to thank Nellie Harnish. She did multiple hours on this, and she did most of the legwork.
Saved us $40,000.
Yes, she did. Yeah. And I think the study is well done. The last one we did, we paid $40,000. The first year that we had to put in was 7.7%, I believe. And then after that, it was 1.7 for the rest of the other 4 years, which averages out to 2.9%. We're going to be recommending 2.5% for the whole 5 years. And in some of the graphs you'll be seeing in there, you'll see how it meets the needs of the city through that period.
Each of the 5 years, or 5 the first year and nothing? Each of the 5 years?
Each of the 5 years for
Okay.
2.5.
2.5.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the average that we're going to be going forward with is 2.5. The other thing I'd like to mention is that the city has been diligent, the commission has been diligent also with having rate increases throughout ever since I've been here, since '88. And that is key. Because of that, we continue to get financing rates at a favorable rate, and we have excellent, what's the word?
You have the best tasting water.
It's much tastier than Mount Clark, let me tell you. I've been there. So, theirs tastes like chlorine. Ours does not. But I mean, we've done a very good job, I think, in doing that. And what we're proposing now is, like I said, 2.5%.
The right one.
Okay. The background of the study is within what we've sent you, or I provided for you tonight. And, we're here, the whole thing is to provide quality public safety and health. And water is an absolute need of people to live. The other point, we want to maintain the integrity of our system, and that's what we've been able to do because of the steady rate increases. And also because of that, the customer is not hurt as badly each time we go and do it. We usually do it. We present it to y'all June 1st, and the first amounts go into effect on the July billings, because we bill in arrears. Again, like I said, water is a fundamental need. Utility rates need to be determined to cover the cost of operation, maintenance, and replacement of essential infrastructure, treatment plants, pipes, well water facilities, while maintaining our commitment to affordability to our citizens. Again, like I mentioned earlier, the last average over the 5 years was 2.9. This is going to be a flat 2.5 every year. So that'll make it consistent. This chart here just gives us a history of our population going from 2007. You might go blind looking at it, but it goes from 2007 to 2021. And this one here is the next one over there that's in black is a consumer price index, and we've estimated that the 2.5 is going to be a good rate going forward. It's the last highest rate, I think, was 3%, and that was like 5 or 6 years ago. All right. This basically is some of the challenges that we have. One of them is going to be the consumer price index, which is also known as the CPI. And it's, for the next 5 years, we think it'll average anywhere between 2.3 and 2.5%. It's hard to tell, but I think that's a good estimate. It hasn't really gone that high over the last 10, 15 years even. So I think we'll be in good shape. It allows us to account for operational needs, which could go from anywhere to 2 to 4% a year. It just depends on the cost of materials and the cost of labor. So, and with some of the laws that have gone into effect, our cost of labor will end up going up over the next 5 years. So, what we're doing will provide adequate revenue to cover operations and bond funding if we have to do it. And as Ron said, we maybe have to lower it down to 2 million, which will help a lot. The state and federal environmental issues, we'll be able to cover those items too, these rates. This here is projected annual growth over the next 5 years, and it's steady. It's not elaborate. It could go much better depending on the annexations and so forth. So we were conservative in this. They get on the right-hand side. It tells you what we expect maybe from water, irrigation, wastewater services, and reclaimed. There are some waivers out there. There are some waivers out there with Lake County for 50% for low-income housing. We also have our own mitigation for impact fees. But what we'll do with that is, as those are done, the water and sewer fund will place that back over into the impact fee fund so that it's available for new construction and expansion of capacity and so forth, which is what it's going to be used for. And if we have to, we can use that money also to pay debt. So that's helpful. Let's see. Okay. Next one just gives you kind of the budget that we have for the water and wastewater. We added stormwater in here. That's not going to be in consideration at this point. We may come back to you at a later time. The stormwater rates have not been increased since probably 2008. Maybe before that I couldn't find an actual date, but it's been a while. And it's been $6 ever since that for residential and 12 for commercial. So initially we were proposed quite a hefty one, but I don't think that's logical. I think we need to start somewhere and basically go with the CPI or some other methodology. So, but it has been suppressed, and the fund does tend to run out. It's running lower and lower, and we won't be able to do as many projects through that fund because of the lack of money coming in. But this gives you a little history of that. It also provides some projections over there on the right of where we're going to be in 5 years. Okay, these will give you some information on the next. This provides some information on the rates that we're going to be using. We're going to be proposing 2.5%. Next commission meeting, we'll be giving you the actual resolution. We have to do a change in the ordinance tonight. But I'll have a detailed spreadsheet you'll have. I'll show you the rates for every piece for the next 5 years. So, the one you would want to be concerned with most is the one on the far right. This here does a comparison of the rates for various cities. I think Eustis is handling it fairly well. We're not the highest, we're not the lowest. We're kind of in the middle. We're above some of our sister cities, or we're less than some of our sister cities, but better off than some of the others. And over on the far right, it gives you, we're number 4 on the chart. Okay. Next one shows you that the water cost per gallon, penny, compared to milk, which is $3.16, I guess, if you buy the expensive stuff. But if you buy Walmart, it's a little cheaper. I think, I don't know for a fact. Soda, the rest of them, it's all in there. So our value is tremendous. You see people at the stores, they'll go to that machine that they have water that's coming right out of the spigot. They're paying a lot of money for that 5-gallon jar. And we provide tens of thousands of gallons a month for very cheap. This one here is what the gallons that we will anticipate using at varying rates, and so the rate for 2.5% is what you can look at each of those levels there. These are the fiscal year expectations for 2021. Those will be coming up here shortly. We'll be done with them in September. We'll have actuals, and we're just getting into the process of doing the hard budgets for next year.
No, I don't.
Just checking. Part of my letter.
I saw you drop some papers. It reminded me of somebody else. The information on the right just gives us some of the debt that we currently have. Some of that's coming off the books now this year, and I think next year another one will be coming off for SRS. So we're looking good on our debt.
The next one here, this one here just gives you, you've seen this more in the past, but it gives you total utility fees and millage rate comparisons for various Lake County cities. And that's just information for yours. And Eustis, again, is somewhere in the middle when you look at all of them. All right. And for conclusion, we're recommending, and will recommend a 2.5% increase. And the resolution will be that amount each year for the next 5 years. In June of each year, or May of each year, we'll bring it back to you so you can revisit it. And if there's some big changes, we can make adjustments. Part of tonight's the ordinance change allows us to keep the wastewater and reclaimed water are both provided to the citizens via resolution. The water rates under the ordinance is provided by ordinance. The change tonight will tell you we'll have all three of those provided by a resolution. The resolution is a one-time reading, and we can change that at any time, even though this will take us through the next 5 years.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Any questions of Mike right now?
Did we have an increase last year?
Yes, 1.7.
Hi, Jim, did you have any idea, I know you had said it's been quite some time since we had raised the reclaimed water.
Yeah.
We're like 6 and 12.
Oh, no, the stormwater.
Stormwater, I'm sorry,
Yes.
6 and 12.
We're at 6 and 12.
Where are we comparative to some of the other communities?
The 12 is high for commercial. We don't have that much in commercial. Our biggest is residential. And I'd have to go back and look and see.
I think on the residential, we were fairly low.
Yeah,
by comparison.
I think to varies. I think maybe some at 10 for that. But I think it's time, I think we look at doing something with it. And I'd like to maybe start as doing something via October 1. Just food for thought.
Any other questions? All right, we will be voting on this when the last thing's in our meeting. All right?
Not the rate.
Not the rate, but the
Part of it.
Part of it.
Next week. we
got it on there. Thank you so much, Mike. Next, we have audience to be heard. Mr. Ryder?
I have Horace Jones.
Horace, come on up. Good to see you.
Nice to be here. Good evening. Horace Jones, Executive Director, Eustis Housing Authority. I just wanted to come and personally thank the City Commission for your letter of support. Several months ago, the Housing Authority applied for a grant through HUD. It was for safety and security enhancements. We were wanting to install security cameras, carbon monoxide detectors, new doors for our apartments, and some fencing in certain areas. And we were approved for the grant a couple of days ago for $250,000. So I just wanted to come and say thank you for your support, and I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to working with you.
Horace, thanks for all you do. You do a tremendous job out here for us.
It's a challenge, but
You do a good job.
It was amazing because when we were taking the chief candidates around the community, we took them to Horace's facilities, they were like, no, this isn't your housing authority. Ours, all three said none of our housing authority properties look this good, so thank you.
appreciate it.
I saw you guys out there working today.
Yeah.
Very hard.
Thank you.
Horace. Anybody else, Mr. Ryder?
No, sir.
Anybody else that'd like to address the commission about something that's not on our agenda tonight? Come on up, Brian. How are you this evening?
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Brian Bromfield, citizen, Eustis. During your presentation, I just made some questions, because we were talking about the infrastructure and, some of what we're going to do with the funding. And then you started talking about water and, sort of picture the drinking water. How is water supplied to the homes in the city of Eustis, through the infrastructure. I don't want to ever be caught in a position like Detroit or
Flint, Michigan.
Flint.
Yeah, we're in good shape.
That just.
Yeah, we have several wells throughout the city that provide water to the various.
Is it pumped through lead pipes?
No,
or,
no,
anything like that?
we have mostly PVC. We do have some galvanized pipe that we're quickly trying to replace, but there is no lead situations
Okay.
here in Eustis.
That just, when you talked about drinking right, it just came to mind, and nobody's ever asked about Eustis, and I just don't want to be caught off guard.
Absolutely. I don't think you would. Brian, thank you. Anyone else that'd like to speak to the commission? Come on up here. Because I knew you were getting up. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Good evening, everybody. April 24th at Missoula Grand Hall, we will have our Clean Comedy Show, which is a key of this is Clean Comedy Show. Tickets, they will be $20, and a table of 10 is $150. Thank you, Mr. Derrick. Thank you, Mr. Willie Hawkins, for purchasing their tables, and anybody else in the room that may come. I had the luxury during the break and everything starting back up, going around from city to city, because I made a lot of comedian friends out of state and around, and I got a chance to just sit and observe and just hear everybody how they talk about how the city of Eustis is so beautiful, and how they like to come here and have the hometown feel, how small it is, and they see people at the park playing with the kids, because a lot of these guys, they come from the big inner cities and they don't get to see that. So, whenever you guys are coming up and, you may have your differences, understand there's somebody out there in the world who they would love to have the arguments we have in this room about putting up lights, annexing stuff in, just other little things that we do day to day. A lot of us have been fortunate enough to live here all our life, and it's all we know. But it is some individuals around the world who come from larger cities, and they would love to have things like this. So, thank everybody. See everybody on the 24th.
Good. Thank you. Thank you for bringing quality shows to town. I appreciate it. Anyone else? Not seeing any, we'll come down to our consent agenda. There's one item tonight under the consent agenda. Anybody, any discussion on that consent agenda item? Looking for a motion? Thank you. All right. Thank you. Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hawkins?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Lee? Aye. Commissioner LaHoop Smith? Aye. Commissioner Cobb? Aye. Mayor Hall?
Aye. Mr. Attorney?
Yes, sir. First item is Resolution 2124, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Eustis, Lake County, Florida, approving a modification of the collective bargaining agreement between the City of Eustis and the Police Benevolent Association, PBA, for the period of October 1st, 2018 through September 30th, 2021, as set forth in Exhibit A, and authorizing the city manager to sign said agreement.
Good evening, Bill Howe, Director of Human Resources. Resolution 2124, as Derek mentioned, authorizes the city manager to sign a collective bargaining agreement with the PBA. Staff recommends approval of Resolution 2124. Over the past several months, the city has negotiated with the PBA and came to agreement on April 2nd, tentatively agreed to additions to Article 23 regarding compensation. The PBA has voted, and by a vote of 27-1, approved the agreement. It is now before the Commission for approval. The substantive provisions of Article 23 include, number one, Police Officer 2 positions will be eliminated. All Police Officer 2s will be reclassified as police officers. Second revision, each bargaining unit member will receive a 2% increase in wages, plus additional individual equity adjustments, is what's included in the attachment A. Those raises will be retroactive to October 1st of 2020. Third modification is we've changed the pay ranges, starting and maximum salaries for each is identified. Fourth change, no additional bargaining unit member may be eligible for 40 hours of vacation leave in lieu of pay. Some of you may not be familiar with that program that started before the city manager arrived here. We've allowed city employees at their choice to decide whether they'd have a pay raise of approximately 2% is the equivalent of 40 hours of vacation throughout the year. So if someone chooses, and we have now, I want to say probably 25 employees, that have chosen to take an extra week of leave each year in lieu of the 2% pay raise they would have received. The only other change to the compensation is foot core reimbursement has been increased from $100 to $125. Again, we recommend you approve the agreement. Total cost is $161,000 approximately. That includes the salaries, the retirement, and FICA. As we mentioned, we had already included 2% in the 2021 budget, as we did for all employees. The additional amount that will be needed to fund this will come out of the current CARES funding for this year. Any questions?
Would any members of the public like to speak on Resolution 2124? Seeing none, the public comment portion of the hearing is closed.
Commissioners, before us we have resolution number 21-24. What's the will of our commission?
So moved.
Thank you. I second. Thank you, sir. Any further discussion? Not hearing any, roll call, please.
Commissioner Hawkins?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Lee?
Aye.
Commissioner Liuba-Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Cobb?
Aye.
Mayor Holland?
Resolution 2125, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Eustis, Lake County, Florida, approving the Eustis City Attorney Agreement.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Schroth has presented a proposal on revising his agreement. As you are aware, Mr. Schroth was selected as city attorney in 2008. The original agreement required the Commission to review the attorney's performance during the first year of the agreement only and evaluate whether compensation levels should be increased or the scope of work altered. The review was conducted in early 2009. A new agreement was approved. However, the retainer and hourly fees have remained the same since 2009. The current agreement states that the agreement renews automatically on an annual basis unless notification is given at least 90 days prior to renewal. Since no adjustments have been made to the retainer or hourly rates since the agreement was first approved in 2008, this attorney is now asking that the Commission consider the following increase of the retainer from $2,083.33 per month to $3,500 per month, and an hourly rate for non-retainer items from $160 to $250 per hour, an hourly rate for paralegal time from $60 per hour to $135 per hour. I'll answer any questions you might have.
Any questions from the commission?
I do.
Councilman?
It said the commission reviewed the city attorney's performance as far as compensation, so we don't do that before we have a review of our...
The current contract has no evaluation language in it, so
So who does the evaluation? Does it get evaluated?
the contract doesn't require it at this point. I mean, if you by mutual agreement want to evaluate the attorney, you have that right to do so based on, if you want to do it based on consideration of this contract, you do it, but there's nothing in there that mandates an evaluation or requires the evaluation.
I guess I would kind of like to see that. I don't know how anybody else feels.
Based on renewing this contract or in future contracts, or future annual?
This contract. I just feel like,
You want an evaluation of the contract?
no, I'm saying a review, before we do any raises or increase in compensation, that we do like the first time we have an evaluation done, a review done, before we agree to a raise in compensation.
I would be opposed. I don't know what's normally done, but I would be
I
opposed.
don't know.
Yeah, our research has indicated, and Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, none of the communities that have contractual attorneys do annual evaluations of them.
Any comment?
Quick, the retainer, the fee is $2,083 per month.
Correct.
Okay. I just want to make sure I have an understanding of what the retainer actually does. when Derek comes in, do we work off that retainer, or do we pay him above and beyond that?
He provides a level of base services for the retainer, and he can probably enumerate them better than I could.
Sure. Under the existing agreement, the base retainer basically covered the commission meetings. Under the proposed agreement, it covers the commission meetings and any phone calls. So there are a couple discrepancies between the contract 13 years ago and this one, and that's one of them. So the basic retainer would cover any phone calls between the commission, any conference calls with staff.
So right now, we're getting the hourly rate of $160 per hour for those.
For every
calls.
phone call.
For every phone call. So what he's saying, for $3,500 a month, we can call them all we want, and we're good.
And these proposed terms, they're consistent with the firm's agreement with Lady Lake and Sheriff's Office. They're the exact same monetary terms that were approved.
Yeah. The hourly rate we pay our labor attorney right now is about $275 an hour for our labor attorney that we use. So the hourly rates are consistent with what we've seen in the market.
I think what I'd like is, I'd like the opportunity actually to sit down with you and have a conversation. I'm not opposed to it, but I'd like to have a conversation about, with me, I come from a different arena. I'm used to certain things when it comes to attorneys. I'm used to, just running in charging. And I know that's not everyone's style. But I would like to have a conversation.
Absolutely.
Yes, sit down. Not that I'm opposed to it, but I would like to have a conversation.
I agree with that, but I think we should all have a conversation.
I think we could have had a conversation at any time. He's always been available. Eric does a tremendous job for the city of Eustis.
Oh, I agree.
And I have no problem with the new contract. I can't believe he's waited this long to present something to us. So,
Yeah, I don't want you to mistake me wanting to have that conversation with, I think Derek's doing a bad job, because I think he's doing a great job. But there's some things I'd like to talk to him about prior to moving on. And not saying that I'm not going to move on, agree to give it to me, but I'd like to have that conversation with him. And, I think I owe it to him moving forward, so he knows where I stand and what I'd like to see.
And I guess it's from my background too, that I think there are different little things and sometimes we need to talk about it, just sign a contract and then life goes on. And I've never seen anyone, it's nice to be able to just do the job and not have an evaluation. And I'm not speaking in terms of anything bad about what you do, because I think you do a great job, but I think just having more knowledge about what we're doing, why we're doing it, and why we've been doing this. And I would also suggest that we not wait so long and have a major increase, but do it incrementally.
And this request, I don't think is any differently than the request that the commission made to evaluate the city manager. So it's just, we need to have those conversations.
Any other questions from the commission? Any other members of the public like to speak on Resolution 2125? Okay, we'll close the public comment portion of the hearing.
Commissioners, we have several ways we can do this. Somebody can make a motion on the resolution as it stands. Somebody can make a resolution or make a motion to table this to our next meeting, if Derek's willing to wait that long.
I've waited 13 years. So, yeah, I'd ask for an up or down vote tonight, and I'm happy to have any conversation with any commissioner. And if there's an evaluation process, I'm receptive to that too.
And just so you know, I think you've done a great job. I've worked with you for 13 years, Derek, and you do a great job for us. And I know there are times that you get caught in situations where you can't represent us because of representing other folks in the community. And when you're in a small town, that happens to us. And we do have to go outside and hire another attorney. You know, if we've got enough of the commission that wants to have that conversation before we move forward, I want everybody feeling comfortable because you are one of the positions that answer actually directly to the commission. So I want everybody to feel very comfortable with what we're doing moving forward. So I'm open for any type of motions that anybody wants to make.
I guess my suggestion would be, if we approve it, that we do have that conversation. That's what it's suggested.
Mr. Schroth has indicated he's willing to meet with you anytime to discuss issues.
Okay?
And we can incorporate an evaluation process annually if that's the preference. I have no objection to that.
Bill, could you look into some cities that maybe do evaluations of their attorneys and see if you can come up with an evaluation form for us?
As the city manager mentioned, our near neighbors do not do it. I reached out to a number of them. I'll get more back in. I did find some things. I did a quick search of other cities that do it for contract employees. It's not uncommon if it's full-time internal staff. Rare to do it for contract employees. I found one. This is really based on the will of the commission on what's important to you. But things like quality of advice, timing, responsiveness, services that they provide, including fees, relationship with the council and staff, and professionalism are some of the factors that I found in other jurisdictions. The will of the commission is to do a formal evaluation as we do, for example, with the city manager. It would be my understanding that that would be done. I distribute forms to you once you approve the format. Come back and we'd have the open discussions that we've always had with the city manager in a public forum, again, if that's the will of the commission.
I think it's important to be able to formally tell him he's doing a good job. We speak it, we verbalize it, but I think having it there that he has something that we can say, you're doing a good job. Here's something you need to tweak. Or if you're not doing a good job, we all agree you're doing a good job, but I think it should be formalized. I mean, that's just my opinion.
All right, so what's the will of this commission?
If I can offer a
Go ahead.
suggestion.
Yes, sir.
If Mr. Schroth is willing to add specific language to allow for, he will agree to meet with you now to discuss issues, because he indicated he would like a decision this evening on the commission's approval of the contract. So with that caveat that he will agree to meet with you individually to discuss issues that you may have and add specific language allowing for an annual evaluation, then if you would agree to make a motion to approve the resolution with those changes, then we can have closure on that this evening.
If I have a phone call with him, will it be at the old rate?
If you approve this tonight, it's included.
That's right.
What a bargain.
Yeah, if you call him before we approve this, then he's charging you $160 per.
I have no problem with approving it with that, us maybe studying this and coming up with an agreement about how we do it.
Is that in the form of a motion?
Oh, I guess it is.
All right, Mayor.
A second.
First and a second, any further
I am
discussion?
just not, I don't know why, but I have a real problem doing an evaluation because if he's not doing a good job, let him go.
But you can't let him go if he doesn't know why he's being let go. Not, and Derek, we're not letting you go.
All right, any further discussion?
We're going to vote right now because I have to.
Okay. All right, so we've got a first and a second. Any further discussion?
The motion is to approve the resolution with the changes requiring an annual evaluation and an agreement by Mr. Schroth to meet with the commissioners here in short order to discuss issues moving forward.
All right, any further discussion? Any further discussion? Not hearing any roll call, please.
Commissioner Hawkins.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Lee.
Aye.
Commissioner LaHoop Smith.
I don't like it. I'm going to vote yes, but I don't like it.
Aye. Commissioner Cobb is
Aye.
Yes, ma'am. Mayor Holman.
Aye. And we're going to take a 5-minute adjournment.
Thank you, Commission.
We'll be back in 5 minutes, folks.
Please note that I cannot pause the live streaming.
Thank you. Good night. Thank you.
You too? Hey Rick, is that your Bible series by the Pope?
I will be here at 11 and again at 2, so I can meet you before either of those meetings, in between, afternoon. You have a meeting here at 11, but I can meet you anytime before that if you'd like. Or between noon and 1, I have a meeting with Lori at 2.
You mean with Tom and I at 2, right?
Oh, you're right, Lori's at 11.
Flavor of the month. Mike, does Tammy know? Does Tammy know? Okay. Okay.
We're going to go ahead and start our meeting back up. Mr. Attorney, we are at 6.3.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution 2126, a resolution by the City Commission of the City of Eustis, Lake County, Florida, authorizing a budget amendment to the current fiscal year 2020-2021 budget
Got it?
to recognize revenue and expenditures in the general fund.
Shouldn't take that.
Accommodating projects and expenditures not previously budgeted, and funding will be in the form of additional monies received by the City of Eustis as a subrecipient of the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Acts, CARES Act, for reimbursements from Lake County to cover cost of current and future needs incurred as a result of pandemics, providing an effective date. Mr. Shepard.
Mike Shepard, Finance Director, Mayor, members of the council, commission. This resolution here, the first time we did something with the CARES Act was back in October of 20. We had very specific items that they requested us to submit to them. We did so. Later on, they came back, and off of that, we received the first payment of $560,000, and then they came back and they said, we don't want those receipts. We're going to want you to give us the payroll for police and fire from March 1 through September 30th. And then we supplied that, and we were done. So they gave us another $403,000. Is the second amount of money we received. And finally, back in February, we got a final distribution of $266,000. In the first one, we budgeted the $592,000, and we spent out of the original monies that we had planned on spending. We spent $504,000. Then at a later date, we came back and we used $4,000 for security cameras, or no, I'm sorry, the gate that's out there, and then another $25,000 for security cameras in one of the neighborhoods. Okay. This here, we're using. We had $58,000 left over that. What we're asking for additional monies for would be the almost $21,000 for the fire assessment fee, which they will present to us later. The electronic commission changes that we're going to do here, $67,000. A couple of weeks ago, we did $30,000 that originally was planned on coming out of the sales tax revenue fund. We're not going to do that now. That's going to come out of the CARES money, and that's what part of this is. And then the final was we're going to pay for the negotiations on the lease. And the budget impact has various accounts it's going to be affected by. So that's long and short. And we ask that you approve the resolution.
Any questions for Mr. Shepard? Would any members of the public like to speak on Resolution 2126? Seeing none, the public comment portion of the hearing is closed.
Commissioners, before us we have resolution number 21-26. What's the will of our commission?
Mr. Mayor, I move for approval of resolution number 2126.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'll second it.
Thank you, ma'am. Any further discussion? Not hearing any, roll call, please.
Commissioner Hawkins?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Lee?
Aye.
Commissioner LaHoop Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Cobb? Aye. Mayor Holland?
Aye. Thank you.
Ordinance 2103, this is the second and final reading and ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Eustis, Florida, voluntarily annexing approximately 1 acre of real property located at 1970 County Road 44. Would any members of the public like to speak on this ordinance? Seeing none, the public comment portion of the hearing is closed.
Commissioners, before us we have ordinance number 21-03. What's the will of our commission?
Mr. Mayor, I move for approval of ordinance number 21-03 on its second reading.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'll second it.
Eustis, Lake County, Florida, amending the City of Eustis Comprehensive Plan, changing the future land use designation of approximately 1 acre of recently annexed real property at 19701 County Road 44 from rural transition in Lake County to general commercial GC in the City of Eustis. Would any members of the public like to speak on this ordinance? Seeing none, the public comment portion of the hearing is closed.
Commissioners, before us we have ordinance number 21-04. What's the will of our commission?
Mr. Mayor, I move for approval of ordinance number 21-04 on its second reading.
Thank you, ma'am.
Second.
All right, thank you, sir. Any further discussion? Not hearing any, roll call, please.
Commissioner Hawkins?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Lee?
Aye.
Commissioner LaHoop Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Cobb? Aye. Mayor Holland?
Aye.
Ordinance 2105, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Eustis, Lake County, Florida, assigning the Suburban Corridor Design District designation to approximately 1 acre of recently annexed real property at 19701 County Road 44. Would anyone like to speak on this ordinance? Seeing none, the public comment portion of the hearing is closed.
Commissioners, before us we have ordinance number 21-05. What's the will of our commission?
Mr. Mayor, I move for approval of ordinance number 21-05 on its second reading.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'll second.
Thank you, ma'am. Any further discussion? Not hearing any, roll call, please.
Commissioner Hawkins?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Lee?
Aye.
Commissioner LaHoop Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Cobb? Aye. Mayor Holland?
Aye.
This is the first reading of Ordinance 2108, an ordinance by the City Commission of the City of Eustis, Lake County, Florida, adopting an amendment to Chapter 94 of the Code of Ordinances to provide for water, wastewater, and reclaimed water rates, adjustments to all be consistent and to be made by resolution, repealing any and all conflicting ordinances, providing for severability and effective date and publication. Mr. Shepard.
Mayor, members of the commission, Mike Shepard, Finance Director. What we found when we were doing the rates resolution, we found that the wastewater rates were provided to you by resolution. We found that the reclaimed water rates were provided by resolution, and that water rates were provided by ordinance. I don't know why it's changed. We hope to change that after the second reading next commission meeting, but that's what this does. It changes the ordinance 90, section 94, section 94, 193-1 to allow the water rates to also be arranged or changed by resolution. And that's, again, the rates go into effect June 1, first billing is July 1. And this will just this will provide consistency with how we make changes to the water and sewer rates. And that's what this is doing. Do you have any questions regarding that?
Seeing no questions, would any members of the public like to speak on ordinance 2108? Seeing none, the public comment portion of the hearing is closed.
Commissioners, before us we have ordinance number 21-08. What's the will of our commission?
So moved.
Thank you, ma'am.
I second.
Ms. Emily, thank you. Any further discussion? Not hearing any. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hawkins.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Lee.
Aye.
Commissioner Luhoops Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Cobb.
Aye.
Mayor Holman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor.
Now we come down to other business discussion regarding wildfire fence regulations. Ms. Lori Barnes.
Mayor, Commissioners, Lori Barnes, Development Services Director, presenting a consideration regarding barbed wire fence regulations to the Commission for consideration and discussion tonight. On March 18th, 2021, staff presented an overview of the city's fence regulations. The City Commission discussion included revising fencing restrictions regarding barbed wire, and staff was directed to bring some middle-of-the-road options back to the City Commission for consideration. The city's current regulations limit the use of barbed wire in fences to agricultural and conservation land use districts, or in cases where there is a public body or public utility that feels the barbed wire fencing is necessary to provide for public safety. Staff prepared 3 possible options for Commission consideration. The final option would be to make no changes. The first option cleans up the language in the ordinance a little bit and adds a provision that would make any fencing installed prior to December 15th, 2016 legally non-conforming, provided Development Services staff can verify it was legally pre-existing prior to that date. And that establishing the fencing as non-conforming, legally non-conforming, would allow that barbed wire to be repaired or replaced as needed, and it wouldn't be subject to the no more than 50% of a run of fencing, as we do with all other types of fencing. The second option staff is presenting provides for the legal nonconformity for pre-existing before December 2016, and also adds a provision that allows barbed wire fencing in general industrial land use districts, provided that is a top of fence 6 feet or taller. The general industrial land use districts in the city are limited. You'll see them in blue on the map on County Road 452, where the Florida Foods facility exists. There are 2 industrial facilities on North State Road 19, a warehouse and Prime Plumbing, And then there's the area along the rail line and the Titcomb Moran Street portion of the city. The third option would include the nonconformity and also allowing the barbed wire fencing on any properties that were approved for an industrial lot type or an industrial complex lot type.
Do you have any of that CARES money left?
We do.
We're working on it. There are various areas in the city where approved industrial lot types exist. In the mixed commercial industrial area at Mount Homer Road, Dillard and Huffstetler, which has established itself pretty much as an industrial area, has several industrial lot types approved through the site plan approval process. Again, the Florida Foods area has several developed properties approved with the industrial lot type. And the northern lots of the Cobb Commerce Park were approved with the industrial lot type. Those are the three options that staff developed as middle-of-the-road options for City Commission consideration. You could approve all, none, or a combination of the three. Or you could propose staff bring back an ordinance to consider any number of options regarding barbed wire. If the commission does opt to keep the regulations in place, know that there are alternative fences that provide for security that are designed to be no-climb fences that do provide an improved aesthetic, all while protecting people's property. And now, if there's no questions, I'll leave it to commission discussion and await direction.
Any questions of Lori while she's at the microphone?
I don't have any questions. I would just like to see, I like number 3, but then also on number 2, add the, was it GI? Add the GI to the number 3 as well. This is my personal opinion.
Lily? Good? Karen? Questions,
I don't
concerns?
have any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Emily? You good? All right, which direction do we want to go with staff? What do you feel about Dan's recommendation with adding the GI to the number 3 and going with it?
Yeah.
You good with that?
Yeah.
Karen, are you okay with that?
And that's what Cobb's tractor is. Is it GI?
No, it's not. Cobb's is the 3rd, but I like the idea of the GI as well. Trust me, it's not been going up and down 19. So it's for commercial properties, you know, and people that are already happy in their existing.
So would new businesses be encouraged to use the fences that Lori described for security purposes, or could they put in barbed wire?
Depending on the direction the commission decides to go, if the third option is brought forward with the addition of general industrial, the existing barbed wire fences installed prior to December of 2016 would be allowed to remain regardless of the land use district or the lot typology that was approved. Existing general industrial properties and existing properties that have an approved industrial lot type would be allowed to install new barbed wire fences. Any development that comes forward in the future that is in a general industrial land use or on a property that is approved for an industrial lot type would be allowed to install barbed wire fences. That is what I can share based on the proposal that's being considered right at this moment. Commercial properties, your general commercial properties, your mixed commercial residential properties are not generally going to be approved for an industrial lot typology. Industrial lot typologies are allowed in limited areas unless the commission approves a waiver to allow them.
So those that were up before 2016, they would be grandfathered in. Does that pass to a new owner? Or if a new owner, if it comes down when a new owner has it?
If, say for example, you had a commercial property, there was a pre-existing barbed wire fence installed prior to December 2016, and staff verified based on personal knowledge or aerial maps that it was in fact installed before then, it would be allowed to remain as a legally existing nonconformity. If a new owner came in and removed the fence, demolished the building, reconstructed the site, that nonconformity would go away.
Just gonna leave the fence.
Is there a cost comparison between the fences that allow for security as compared to the barbed wire? Is that why someone would choose barbed wire over the other one?
There is an increased cost for the other security type fencing. Barbed wire is relatively inexpensive, and the no-climb security fencing does have a higher cost. It also has an improved aesthetic compared to your barbed wire. So at the commission's discretion, staff will prepare whatever ordinance you desire.
Especially when, Emily, to your question, it is an incredible cost, especially when you're looking at acres. If it's a lot, it's one thing, acres is it's apples and oranges.
So by adding on general industrial, along with industrial building complexes, we would not have that type of topology, is that the word I'm looking for, within like the downtown district? It would be possibly like on the railroad tracks, or like...
Put the map back
Put the
up.
map back up. Thank you.
Unfortunately, I don't have a design district map in the presentation, but I will try to do my best in explaining. The industrial building lot and the industrial complex lot typology, the allowance of that is limited. It's not permitted in an urban corridor district, which is going to be along your State Road 19. It's not permitted by right in a suburban corridor district. The lot typologies in the Dillard Road area and Hofstetler Road area, those industrial lot typologies were approved by waiver by the City Commission. Okay? The suburban district, which is the Florida Foods area, that permits industrial lot types. The rural district, which we have none of on our map, permits the industrial lot type. The northern 4 lots on the Cobb Commerce Park property were approved as industrial lot types through the preliminary subdivision plat, approved by waiver from the City Commission. The general industrial areas, if you include them, it won't matter if it's an industrial lot typology or not. So you will have the area where Florida Food exists. We don't have much of a pointer. The area along the railroad tracks to the west of South Bay Street, and the small area on North State Road 19. Those would not require an industrial lot type based on what's proposed. You would be permitted by right to have barbed wire fencing in any of the blue areas on this map. And on any of the properties marked with a star, on any future properties approved for an industrial lot type or industrial complex lot typology. Did that explain?
Any further questions of Lori? Okay, all right. So we need to give some direction to staff on this. So let's hear, let me kind of poll the commission. Who's good with going with number 3 and then adding the G1 to? And then Willie, Karen?
So what would you add in the G1? It's just the little blue areas.
The blue areas,
They're industrial.
which are along the railroad tracks, out by the pier, and then where the Board of Foods is, and then
It's not up and down 19.
No. It's not in our business districts.
No, it's not in the business district.
I'm just thinking about, we have those storage yards like around Sharps Park. Do they have barbed wire? The car storage yards, do they have barbed wire?
There are several quasi-industrial facilities along the railroad track that currently exist behind Sharps Park, to the west of the railroad track, and they do have pre-existing barbed wire. Staff hasn't done a survey to confirm all of the existing barbed wire fences and whether they were legally existing prior to 2016. If the commission does approve the ordinance, we will do so because my staff knows where most of them are.
So boat storage and things like that with, which I understand. Okay, thank you.
You okay with number 3 then with the GI added to it?
We'll see where it leads.
We'll see what it is. So we'll ask staff to bring back Emily. You okay with it that way? See what we come up with when staff brings it back?
Yes.
Go with number 3 then. The GI added to it. We'll bring it back and we'll go from there. Okay, thank you, ma'am. And I guess you're on the next one also, correct? This is consideration amendments to section 110 and 115 of the land development regulations.
Mayor, Commissioners, Lori Lawrence presenting a proposed amendment to the land development regulations. Be it known that when we bring forward the amendment to the land development regulation, should the commission provide direction to move forward with these proposed changes, we will wrap the fence regulation amendment and these proposed amendments into one package to be presented to the commission. As most of you know, staff keeps a running list of discrepancies, inconsistencies, instances of awkward language or interpretation issues in the land development regulations, and we bring them to the commission from time to time to be corrected, revised, clarified. I will try to be brief. Your staff report does include a full accounting and full excerpts from the code for the areas that we're wishing to address. The first is regarding measurement of standards. There's several exemptions to the measurement of standards in our code. We do have height limitations in all of our land use districts. And there are certain structures and appurtenances that are exempt from the height limitations, but they are not all-inclusive. Staff had a situation with an improvement at Florida Foods where there was question as to whether this exemption could be applied because that specific structure was not listed in that section of the code. Now, ultimately, they did not need to be approved for an exemption, so we didn't need to bring that to the commission for a waiver, but we'd like to have the Development Services Director have some administrative authority when we have similar type structures that come about that aren't specifically listed in that paragraph. In addition to the height limitation exemptions, there's a section of our code that allows an exemption for a secondary street setback. Our code requires a street setback on corner lots, and that street setback applies to both street frontages. So if you're on a house lot in a suburban neighborhood district, you need a 25-foot setback from your front street and a 25-foot setback from your side street. The exemption in the code provides some awkward language. It talks about a non-ingress egress easement, which such a thing does not exist. Staff has, on occasion, worked with property owners to prepare a deed restriction that prohibits vehicular access from that secondary road. And the code provision allows us in that case to treat that as a common lot setback and reduce the required setback to that of a common lot rather than a street yard setback. So this is just a cleanup of language so that it's not awkward and it's more clear exactly what we're attempting to accomplish. Provisions regarding accessory structures, docks, they refer to docks being required to be placed entirely within lot lines. Very few of our properties have lot lines that extend into the water, extend into the lake. We think this was an oversight. They're really talking about riparian lines, so we'd like to correct that. Several sections of our accessory structure regulations refer only to accessory structures and not accessory uses. We'd like to clean up some of the paragraphs in that section to make it clear that the provisions apply to all accessory structures or accessory uses. The next modification we'd like to make is regarding screening for long-term storage containers. Long-term storage containers are permitted in commercial and industrial properties, provided they are surrounded by a masonry or brick enclosure. That requirement is practical when the outdoor storage, long-term storage containers can be viewed from the public right-of-way or a neighboring property. We've come across some situations where these storage containers are placed in the rear yard of a building adjacent to a developed property that has a 10-foot setback. They cannot be seen from the neighboring property or from the street. So we like to provide an exemption that on staff review, if we determine that an alternative screening can be applied, we can do so without bringing it as a waiver to the commission. We have two lot typologies that require correction. The first is the duplex lot typology. We require a minimum lot width of 90 feet for a duplex lot in suburban and rural districts. And you'll see on the screen, the requirement is 35 feet in an urban district. We believe that's an oversight when 35 feet was intended to reference one side of the duplex lot. So we'd like to make that correction so that the urban duplex lots are sized in a manner that they can actually support a duplex. The next is the townhouse lot typology. The townhouse lot typology provides for a maximum setback of 10 feet, and that on the table applies to urban, suburban, and rural districts. There is a footnote on this lot typology and several others in the code that required 18-foot setback to garages in urban districts. We think that it was an oversight that differential setbacks weren't provided for townhome lots in urban versus suburban and rural districts. If you look at the duplex lot typology, your suburban street setback is 25. Your urban street setback is 10 with 18 foot to the garage. We want to apply the same kind of logic here to the townhome lot. And the reason for that additional garage setback is to make sure that there's room for car parking and stacking without overhanging the sidewalk and blocking accessibility, and allowing that stacked parking so that people don't end up parking in their front yards. The other thing we'd like to correct here is we'd like the rear setback to indicate an alley or rear setback. Not all townhomes are rear loaded these days, and so we need to make sure that we're applying a rear setback in the case where they're not on a rear alley. Chapter 115 is the section that provides for residential compatibility for new development, abutting or adjacent to existing development. The Commission is well aware that in November we brought forth an ordinance to clarify the definition of abut. We believe that there is going to be continual concerns regarding ambiguity in these provisions of the code and differing interpretations. So what staff would like to do is rework these sections to create a regulation that is more black and white and less subject to varying interpretations. We have a residential compatibility requirement for urban districts that may not actually be necessary, as we may not have urban districts that abut any substantially vacant or unplatted lots. In suburban and rural, staff believes we need to apply a different standard. Suburban development is the majority of the development we're seeing in the city right now. We believe that by maintaining the 85% requirement, where you have a situation where new lots are actually sharing a common lot line with existing lots, we think that's practical. We think when a plan provides for an HOA landscape buffer or some kind of separation between the existing lots and the new lots, and the setbacks from the structure on the existing lot and the new lot provides for a substantial separation between the two, we think that that is reasonable as well. So with Commission's permission, we'd like to come back with a proposal to have a differential requirement for our suburban districts and perhaps a larger buffer requirement in our rural districts. And I hope that removing some of this language and creating a list regulation where if this then that, then we can eliminate some of this confusion, argument, ambiguous language, and differing interpretations so that the Commission can feel confident in applying the regulation to proposed development. Our code has minimum driveway widths for residential districts. A single driveway is 12, a double drive is 18. We've had a couple of developments along Orange Avenue that have only included a 12-foot driveway. We think it's a safety issue. We'd like to impose a requirement for an 18-foot residential driveway if you're on a collector or arterial roadway. The 12-foot can remain in a regular residential neighborhood, but we feel that there needs to be a wider drive and apron for these properties that are on higher traffic roads. Our code also doesn't provide a minimum distance between driveways. We're finding inquiries from property owners on lots that are as small as 50 feet wide wanting to add an additional driveway to connect to the public right-of-way. There's plenty of other options to provide for parking area on your property without adding another curb cut and driveway onto the city right-of-way. I talked to the Public Works Director. He agrees. We're going to look at some other cities' regulations as far as distance between driveways. We've got regulations encouraging joint use access drives, but nothing to mandate them. So we'd like to bring something reasonable and tested in other communities back to the Commission. Clear sight zone. We have a clear sight zone requirement in our code for corner lots as far as visibility is concerned, and the clear sight zone size is based on the roadway type. If you're a local road, if you're a collector road, if you're an arterial road, the visibility triangle grows. We have an exemption under the fence code that allows 4-foot fences in the visibility triangle, yet the section for clear sight zone doesn't mention that exemption. So I'd like to clean that up and make sure that if we have an exemption in one section of the code, it's showing in the other. The other I'd like to address is if we're permitting fences at 4 foot in the visibility triangle, why not other structures? Why not decorative landscape walls? Why not signs? If the 4-foot standard is not going to create a safety issue, why should that exemption be limited only to fences? And the last, we found that our parking requirements table has some uses that don't identify a hard standard for parking requirements. It actually states that it should be determined during development review. The American Planning Association has parking standards guidance, and to avoid any conflicts in the future, I'd like to provide hard and fast parking requirements for those uses where they're deemed to be determined during review. I think that this will prevent any conflict in the future between applicants, businesses, and staff when trying to develop a parking requirement based on a use as they're coming in the door. Now, with any parking standard and any land development regulation, if a site can't meet it and they have adequate justification, we can bring that to the Commission for a waiver request. Staff would like Commission direction to proceed with the land development regulation amendment. If you have questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions for the board? Give us somebody one straight to us.
Tammy Pena.
Candy here.
She just wanted her email written for the record.
We received an email. Please make it part of the record, please. Okay. Looking for approval for staff to go ahead and continue working with us and bring it back to us. So, everybody good with that?
Awesome.
All right. Go ahead and bring it back to us, Lori. Thank you so much. Next, we have discussion regarding noise ordinance. Chief, you going to do it? Ron, you going to do it?
There was concerns raised regarding our noise ordinance. The Commission said they wanted to see a copy of it and then have it for discussion, so you have it.
I know that,
Thank you so much.
I know that we have received a lot of phone calls with cars with loud music. We have had events within our city that things have gotten out of hand with loud music and disturbing residents. So, Chief, I know you come from a city that you have dealt with this a lot, so let you go with it.
Okay, Greg Capri, Police Chief. I do come from a city where we dealt with large crowds and noises. And years back, the Supreme Court ruled music in the car for protecting First Amendment rights. Religious broadcasting, we've had issues where people would be out in the streets, for example, up to the Daytona 500, blasting religious, and that's their right to do that. There's not much you can do there. Our hands are restricted. But there's other things you can do. We have a pretty good ordinance here. I like some of the things I'm seeing there as I've been reviewing it. What I found out, and from just talking to some people here, it seems like certain areas that we're dealing with the noise. Let's talk about some of the automobile noise, the jailbreak from the trucks. That was one of the complaints we received about the jailbreak. Well, 19 is a state highway, and there are a lot of trucks that come through here. It's hard to enforce. It's hard to enforce, even if we were able to get a violation. By the time we went to court, I'm sorry? Okay. Well, we got a violation, went to court, we would, there's so many different angles of defenses that these drivers can use. When we did at Daytona Beach with all the overwhelming noise and vehicles, we started a PSA campaign. We posted it, we blasted it out on our web pages, we did it on our social media platforms about, please ride quietly. It's all about respect. It was about the All About Respect campaign that was started by Mayor Scarlett Golden years ago. And it actually worked. We had signs put up, residential community, please ride quietly. It's all about respect. That helped us out tremendously, because people look at that sign and they go, you know what, I live in the neighborhood, maybe I wouldn't want that. You're counting on people's kindness to a point. Doesn't take away from the enforcement piece. It's easier to enforce a noise violation if you have a business blasting music outside the application or inside the application. There's things you can do with sound meters and decibels. And we have 2 sound meters. We have people trained for sound meters. It's a lot of work to do that. I'm not saying that's not important work, but sometimes there's other ways to get to a resolution. The goal is compliance. The goal is compliance. So there's several different ways we can approach it. Get out there with appeal. I would recommend definitely putting signs up in the few areas that we've had with chronic complaints. I know 2 locations that I heard. One was by a senior center. We can saturate that area with signs. We can put our officers out there to just have high visibility. When people see patrol cars in the area, they tend to sometimes just lower the stereo. I know when my cars, when I pull up, they see the police, they lower the radio. They don't have to, but they do it. I don't think everybody understands that, that maybe it's respect, I don't know, but it's a lot of work, especially now with COVID also. The court systems don't want to be tied up with this. And I can tell you, a lot of this stuff's not going to get prosecuted. And it's going to cost us a lot of money to file on these things, on city ordinances. The best route to go is a state statute. It takes off the fees to the city. But I'm open to anything and any suggestions outside the box approach to that. I like the signs, putting signs up in these areas. Please ride quietly, residential neighborhood. Meeting with these, trying to meet with the complainants to try to get, drill down and find out what especially with the cars and the cars, people in parking lots. That's things we could do easy fixes. Pull in there with a patrol car. Hey guys, can you move on? Do me a favor, or just stay there. Get out of the car, put your lights on, just sit there. People are going to leave. We've had issues in Daytona where we had street parties. 50, 60, 70 cars would go in a parking lot and take it over. We bring 3 or 4 units down there. Can you guys leave? Can you move along? 90% of them are going to be compliant and move. And the ones that don't are going to do something else besides the noise ordinance. They're going to do something. They're going to commit another violation where we can, conduct a traffic stop and take enforcement action. We never want to break the law or enforce the law. And it's getting very restrictive with the Supreme Court, especially with the car noise.
Do you have any idea what you can do at 3 o'clock in the morning when you hear a car coming down 19, probably 2 miles from your house?
Yeah.
And nobody else is out for that car. And you hear it coming. You know it's coming.
If we're on patrol, if the officers look, we made a priority. We said this is a community concern. If it's a problem with a citizen, it's a problem to us. We want to address that. We want to address it the most fair and equitable way without crossing any kind of lines with getting ourselves in trouble.
Are warnings a waste of time?
I'm sorry?
Are warnings a waste of
Not
time?
necessarily. Not necessarily. Now, if you give somebody a warning and they don't comply the second time, it's the same person, then I would think you wasted your time. But I think my experience with it was, on such a massive level, we really got a lot, but those signs really worked in our city. They really worked. And especially during the events. During the events when you had out-of-towners coming into town, that, hey, they would just come here. I mean, I'm talking blasting stereos, like the houses are shaking. That's how loud it was. And we don't have those problems anymore. Well, we didn't have any problems anymore, especially during the events. I think we should, look at it. I don't know if we even, I can't find it where we even, and I haven't looked at it that much, but we haven't issued any city ordinances on this. We have a sample one. I just don't think it will hold up in court. I don't think it will hold up in court. I think the best route for us, and the most effective route, is get compliance, high visibility, find out when these, if there's a street party coming on, or get in there and use other ways, get from a code angle, trespassing, using state statutes to kind of get the goal is to get compliance. It's going to be hard to do it with the noise ordinance, but there's other things that you can use in conjunction with that. I just don't know how big the problem is here yet. I've only been here my second week, but I'm sure I'll find out and see it because I'm going to be out there a lot, and there's ways we can address it. It worked great with neighborhood watch groups too. When we get out to the neighborhood watch groups to get the word out. A lot of the car clubs too. We get with the car clubs because they let us come in and say, these are the rules, man. You got to work with us. And I think when you approach it to that level and you have them become part of the solution, that helps. The trucks are going to be an issue. We can work with FHP. I see a lot of FHP troopers in town, and that's because it's a state road. But I'm not used to seeing troopers where I come from. Only when we have events. But it seems to me there's a lot of troopers working in these areas here. We can, that's their expertise. That's their expertise with vehicle violations and whatnot. I just don't know the impact. I know the senior center seems to be a real big top issue. That's something we could really work there with signs and getting out there and being visible.
We changed our policy on the building from the noise coming out of the building. So I don't think at the time.
Well, we have more flexibility since we're renting the building and we own the building. We can take a little more aggressive action there. The concerns the chief's raising is obviously on the right of way. We got a little more flexibility when they're violating the ordinance on our property.
Oh, yeah.
Now, one of the complaints, and the person that complained to me, they complained a couple of times, and I went out and I checked, and by the time I got there, it was quiet. And then the question was, there are people that are loud and out there. Is there a way? And last time there was actually an officer there.
Yeah.
But of course he didn't
Observe it.
But is there a way, or is it something that we want to look into, making it part of a contract to have someone there?
At the center?
Yeah.
I'd like to go over there and talk to the people about what time exactly they're experiencing. It's got to be during the day, right?
I mean, when we rent the place out.
I'll have to get with Craig because what we did is when we were going to have parties that we thought were going to be an issue, they had sent those contracts to the police department in advance of that party so that they would conduct extra patrols in that area on the day. So I'll get with Craig to make sure that that's continuing.
I'm just confused. Is it, we rent the place out? Is that what it is?
Correct.
Oh, I thought it was a senior citizen during the day that senior citizens went.
No, we call it the senior center. It's a
Okay.
building we rent out.
So we had that. We had buildings in the city where we built into the whoever was renting it. We looked at their proposal and said, okay, you're going to need a police officer, you're going to need a firefighter, whatever you need for the event, but we'll work with you. A lot of times you get with the promoters beforehand and let them know we're not going to rent it out. You're going to be in compliance with our ordinances and state statutes, and you get one chance at it. I had a lot of groups that had bad reputations, let's say, for going to places and causing problems with noise. And, I'm not talking criminal stuff, just noise and drinking. And I would meet with them from the front end and get them involved and say, look, this is a chance for you to make your thing and do your thing, and you can probably do it as long as you want. But you're getting one chance here to do it right. So it's better for you to police this event than to have the police your event.
It's been a problem because we've had the same, quote, group of people renting facilities, and then we'd have complaints. Joe would come in and rent it, and then next time Fred would come in and rent it. So it's difficult to track that way. I think the best effect we had was that when the rental staff targeted a rental on that facility and we thought it was a similar type group, they would send that notification to the PD and they would conduct extra patrols during that event and tell them to keep the sound down.
That's an easier fix when you have a building that we own and even a house party. We have more leverage to control noise that way than we do. I'm talking about vehicles going by with the loud stereos and the trucks with the J-brakes, that's almost impossible to stop. But locations like businesses and houses, and even, we have a little bit more leeway to get in there and really solve the problem, at least get them to shut it down.
I thought we could put some hours of amplified music in our senior service building.
We did.
That we done. Yeah, so, because we dealt with that same issue with the same.
What we did in Daytona is if there was an event at any kind of city facility, it would get signed off down the list by all department heads to see if they were good with it. Like the fire chief would look at it from the fire end, the police would look at it from the police end, utilities, or everybody was involved. It was a checklist that everybody had to sign off on, and the city manager made the ultimate call.
I think what I'll try to do is, at least in that instance, because I think they may have an office there where they may have a meeting room. Maybe we can get the residents together and see if it's an issue for everyone.
Yeah, I'd like to get a good read on what we're looking at and make a good informative decision and gain compliance, because that's going to be the most effective way and the least amount of wasted time and money if we get compliance. But these events are easy to control, especially with outside application, and there's things you can do with the sound meters, and it just takes, and I'm not opposed to, you can even have officers monitor it. We can just, if it's depending, it depends on how many events we have, but a lot of that should be put on the actual promoter. If they're going to have an event, they should have fees assessed as far as hiring a police officer.
Well, the one thing that the last couple of times that I went, it wasn't about a birthday party.
Yeah.
So,
a lot of times it's compliance, and when you explain, I found it when you explain to people why you're there and what you're doing and why you're doing it, you're going to get that instant respect to the point where, okay, the police aren't here to harass me. They're responding to complaints, and I can get it. People living next door would complain to that. So I always try to go the path of least resistance first, and then we always can ramp up our enforcement efforts.
I'll see if I can work that out.
So I'm available 24/7, 365, especially for you, Commissioner.
I do like the idea of the signs, especially on Center Street, because that was some of the folks that called me as well, and I know you can't do a lot.
But the signs work, because people look at them.
But on Center Street, I think I really think that
Center
might
Street,
help.
Grove Street, and Banks Avenue.
Just put them up.
Where I get the most complaints.
Exactly.
Please ride quietly. It's all about respect, and that's what we did. And we had them even on the garbage can covers, all up and down A1A. We had them on all the main entries into the city, and even entries into the city. We had them staggered, and the problems. I mean, ultimately, it resolved.
I will say this, and it was before you got here, and when we had an issue at the fairgrounds. And so it's a difficult situation because it's county-owned property, but it's in the city. And so one of the people that lives in Southern Palms, she had called numerous times and to PD. You just got to make sure that somebody's got to respond. Because nobody responded. They told her, we'll see if we can find somebody, but we're busy.
Well,
and
I think I'm setting the tone as far as every call that comes in, every complaint that comes in, we handle, regardless.
And for her, that could have been so resolved with just moving it to the other side and just stopping that on that one road, and she would have been fine. She said, I know the noise is loud, and I know they're going to have a party, and I don't have a problem with that. But it was almost antagonistic behind their house was from here to here, from where the cars were.
Well, we're going to be all about customer service, and every customer is important to us, and we're going to make sure we get a resolution to them. We're going to go out there and explain to them what we can do and what we can't do.
And they had a private company that was there, but it was extremely busy.
And in all fairness, that should have never been permitted to have happened to begin with.
Totally agree.
That was the weekend of George Fest.
Yes.
We were low in law enforcement, the county was low, and the highway patrol was low. And we were put in a situation where it ended up getting permitted, and we just didn't have the people.
It should have been.
And you're correct, had somebody answered the call, it'd have been better, but
We've had those same issues where stuff got through, and you work with the promoters and you try to get a resolution. The goal is to get compliance. That's going to be the best point, and I think sometimes we communicate and you answer people's phone calls, or you respond to people's houses when they call for a police officer. That's what they're paying taxes for. We work for them. We don't have a choice. I mean, and it's the right thing to do. So I think I set the tone. I'm new here, but I think I made it quite clear that we're going to be very, very involved and engaged with our community, and every call is important to us, so.
And, you know, if we can't permit event, we can't permit event.
No,
We don't
and-
have the right.
And that was just
safety to take
that
care
was
of
just
it.
a concern from a constituent, from a citizen, actually.
Yeah.
And so, she's better now.
Okay.
Anything else, Will?
Ron, is it possible for us to, what Craig is saying, get that out on the website? You know,
The respect sign?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have our own sign shops. We can prepare the signs.
I can be on social media.
And we can do it on
And
social
just-
media.
Just have it run.
Yep.
You know.
We can pin it.
We did it, and I can get you what Daytona did, I can get all that stuff. And it was started by our former mayor, and she was great. And she was right out there with us on the front lines, and it worked tremendously from that, you know, that was like 80% of the work was done just by those few words. Please ride quietly, it's all about respect.
Karen, anything on this, ma'am? Not advice, Mayor, anything? Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Chief,
Thank you.
All right, coming down to future agenda items. Karen, anything for a future item on the agenda? Ms. Emily?
Yes, I would like to allow the Eustis Community Alliance, who's working at the Old Resource Center and interested in working with Wastewater, and I'd like for them to be on the agenda to do a presentation, plus to know what they're doing in the
Do they have a date when they'll be ready?
The next-
They'll be ready for the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
That's fine. Perfect. Anything else, Emily?
I was wondering, when do we have an update on the community action housing?
Next meeting.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anything else, Mayor? Willie?
I'd like to, and I'm sure all the commissioners up here would agree, and I don't know where it would fall, but, you know, we were looking at the monitor, and for all of the older people, you couldn't see it.
Why'd you do that?
I'd love for us to explore getting monitors up here.
Okay.
I can't see it. Yeah, it was bad. And
Okay.
then we just need to get this, and I know that as we redo the system, we're going to make some improvements.
We are.
Yeah, it's bad. And it would be great if we could all have a monitor.
We can do that.
Any further agenda items, sir? Ma'am?
I'm good, I'll wait till city commission comments.
What's that?
I'll wait till city commission comments.
Guess what? City commission comments.
Well, I met with, I'm sorry, Mary, I'll get closer. I met with Mr. Nybert today, and I know there's been some concern about the garden, and so I'm going to take that concern away and all the hoopla and uproar and whatever you want to call it. But I actually met with him today, and it will address the concerns of a separation. So there's we can either do it from the side of the current garden, the way it is, from the side of the back. So whoever wants to remain there can remain there, and they can clean it up, do whatever they want to do. So we're just going to start over.
That's a great idea.
And but I'll take care of my end on my part of the garden for the children.
Anything else to report?
The only thing I would ask is if, could we please just look at the repairs at the Bennett Park fence?
Yep.
Need some repairs.
Willie, anything to report, my friend?
Yes. The street, you know, I talked to Mr. Nybert a couple of weeks ago about Walling and Virginia.
Virginia.
Yeah. And I know that Melanie got back to us.
Yeah.
To say that it was ours.
Well, I think she said it's really nobody's, but
That's what, I read.
yeah.
Well, what does that mean?
What that means is the county's not going to do anything about it, and we need to step up.
Okay. Let's see. Talked about the iPads, talked about the noise. Communication. The monitors. Communication, you know, I brought this up a while back, and we just haven't had time to talk about it, but I think it's important that we make communication with the community a priority. fire department does a great job. The police department does a great job. Craig does a great job. And I just want to make sure that when it gets inside of a brick and mortar building, City Hall, that we do the same thing.
Okay.
You know, I've had some complaints, but, you know, if you don't address it, you know, it's a waste of time. So that, and when it comes to the garden, I'd like to get a truckload of mulch, if possible. So,
We'll see if we got some available.
and I'm done.
Thank you, my friend. Ms. Emily,
Yes.
we got the report. Do you hear anything? Ms. Karen? All right. Mr. Manager?
I have nothing this evening.
Oh, my. Mr. Attorney?
I have two brief items. First, thank you for approving my contract. I've enjoyed being the city attorney now for over 13 years and look forward to working with all of you in the future. And second, I want to give special thanks to Lori Barnes. We recently had 2 dismissals with prejudice of 2 lawsuits that were very extensive, accused us of sunshine law violations, comprehensive plan violations, numerous statutory violations. And because of the presentation of staff and the staff report, which was extremely thorough, it gave us the ammunition we needed to beat both those lawsuits. So I wanted to say thank you to her. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you so much. A couple of things we got is we've got the Spring Bike Rally and Music Fest coming up on April 23rd and 24th. Should be a great time in downtown Eustis. I know the staff has worked very hard putting that together. So that's coming up. Keep that in mind. Eustis High School girls softball team. They are like 16-1. They're ranked number 1 in 4A in their district. They're ranked number 4 in the state of Florida. And they're ranked number 15 nationally. So if you get an opportunity, look at the website, go out to a game, support them. They're doing a tremendous job for us. Then on May 8th, our award-winning high school band, and it is probably the oldest running band program continuously in the state of Florida, if I'm not mistaken. They're having a jazz review down at the band shell. At that jazz review, that is on May 8th at 7:30. Thomas McClary, that is a graduate of Eustis High School, and one of the founders of the Commodores, will be performing with the jazz band. It's going to be phenomenal. So they are selling, you can bring your yard chair, watch it for free, but they are selling VIP tickets for $20, and they're selling tables of 8 for $140. Please come out and support our jazz band and our band program in general. They do a phenomenal job for us, so would love to see everybody out at that. Also, just want to remind everybody that we start our negotiations with the county. I will be sitting down with Derek and Lori with county staff next week. So we'll start that and see if we can come up with some negotiating tools to move us forward in some areas with negotiating with Lake County. So that's all I have. I want to thank everybody for staying with us this evening. It's been a long night, but a good night. We're adjourned. Yeah,
One minute. Today, I took the chief out. We had lunch with some members of the community. And I want to give kudos to the city manager. But at the last minute, he came out, he showed up. And I think